Hey beautiful people, my name is Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today, I want to just start out with a couple of tops and a couple of flops that have occurred in 2023, which is, in a way, I was thinking kind of handy because the rest of the year, if you're doing a tag or you're doing a reflection and you want to say what was a book that disappointed you or what was a book that you DNF'd, I'm already good to go. So I will go over two flops and then two tops and kind of give you my reasoning behind those reviews, and then you can decide from there where you want to go. But I will start out with a very unpopular opinion, and one that was a huge surprising disappointment to me. And I know this is a beloved book, and so I apologize up front, but I have to be honest. I have to just be transparent with who I am. And that's A Gentleman in Moscow by Immortals. Now, I will say right off the bat, I do appreciate his writing. It's very beautiful and easy to get into, and I do absolutely plan to read The Lincoln Highway, which is also on my TBR pile. So I'm not hating on the author here by any means, but this was not the book for me. I feel like this is a story of a gentleman who's in Moscow. He has been accused of kind of writing some literature that is anti-government. He gets put under house arrest, and it's basically in a really swanky hotel, and he gets all busybody-ish into the hotel and the people's lives and businesses, which sounds actually great. I am very character driven. I'm very all these things. And so I was expecting kind of a slow burn thriller. That's what I kind of went into with it. And this is already appearing on the classic shelves in the bookstore when I go in. So I was really expecting great literature, which it does lean a little bit towards that. But I felt like this book never figured out what it wanted to be. Like every time it started to introduce something like, oh, here we go, something thrilling is going to happen, or, something big is going to go down, it really fizzled out and never came to fruition. And when there was a romance in it, it was like, okay, well, maybe it's really about characters and this romance. But the romance wasn't really fleshed out. It was very present through it, but you didn't get to go deep into it. And then, it's historical fiction, and I thought, okay, I'm going to learn something about, Russian government or those times or what's going on. But again, that felt very surface level. And so I appreciated that it was kind of dipping into all these things, but I would get all excited and geared up like, okay, here it is. It's a romance, it's historical fiction, it's a thriller. No, just at the end of it, I was just like, huh, okay. I just feel like I was on the runway and never got to take off. So, not horrible, but just really disappointing. And I am sorry to my friends who love this book. I totally appreciate that you love it and support you in your love for it. But I have to say, it just didn't make it for me. Now, as opposed to that one, which was a decent book, just wasn't my cup of tea. This next book, I very, very rarely rant on books, but if you like that, then stay tuned. If you don't, or if you think at any point that this book sounds interesting and you may want to read it or you may want to give it some love, then fast forward the little bar until I'm not holding up the book, okay? That's my disclaimer, because I am going to do some spoilers on here. So spoiler alert for this as I kind of rant a little and talk about this book, The Captives by Deborah Jo Immigert. So this book, I mean, you look at it, the cover breakdown says that it is basically a male therapist who is working in a prison system and doing, psychological analysis and trying to help prisoners. And in walks a girl that was basically his huge fantasy high school crush, that we learn very quickly into the book that he even like almost stalked her. Like he would follow her and kind of pine for her and spy on her, even to the point of finding ways to look into the locker room to try to catch glimpses of her changing and like really creepy stuff. And we find out pretty quickly that he is working in the prison as a secondary kind of penalty job because he was doing some therapy with a young child. He was unexpectedly bit by the child who had an episode, and he reflectively backhanded the child and hit the child. So he got removed from that position. So if you kind of like the unreliable, creepy narrator, maybe this book would be for you. But the girl herself, you don't have any doubt that she did the crime. She was involved in basically murder. So she's in for 50 some years of her life, and she's trying to commit suicide. So she's going to him to try to persuade him to give enough medication to, end her life. And then he's like playing this cat mouse thing because he's really not supposed to be treating her because he's invested in her. But then when the suicide attempt doesn't come off, now he's trying to get her out of prison. And I just like illegally get her out. And I'm just like, okay, there's so many things wrong with this, in my opinion. It's like, you're now 40 something. You've already been reprimanded in your career. You are now holding on to this thing in high school that didn't even happen. Like, they didn't even have a relationship. And, I mean, he's the big problem in the creeper. And I don't like horror. I don't like those kind of, things. Although I'm going to counter that with a book that I loved here. So hold on, because this can be done well. But this one was not done well for me. So I'm going to say, since this is my cover that I said was kind of misleading because she's in prison, she's not like this. But here's my theory. I got about over halfway in this book. But my theory is that he breaks her out somehow, and then he becomes psycho and ties her up and blindfolds her and like does all of his fantasies and lives them out. And then he gets thrown in prison and he takes her place, kind of thing. That's the way I think the book goes. I don't know if that's true. If you've read this book, go ahead and, put a little spoiler cap for anybody else who wants to read it. But let me know. I want to know what actually happens. But I didn't care enough to know enough to read it. This was just, so frustratingly unbelievable and stupid and like, ooh. Okay, rant over. That's that. We're going to get into a couple tops that I have already had in 2023. The first one I want to talk about is The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. This book is a beautiful book about kind of historical fiction, but going around the Oxford Dictionary and the men who put that together, their process in putting it together, and then a daughter of one of the men who grows up around that and starts recognizing that some of the words are altered or some of the definitions are left out or change that make them a little bit, sexist and not upholding the fullness of those words. And so she saves those, and then how does that play out? How does she go on that quest? How does she live her life? And just the pondering of words and the meaning of words was just fascinating, educational, really, really wonderful. The characters were just very endearing. I just really loved it. And I did read this alongside right after Babel, which is another book that's talking about words and their origin. And I really, until those two books, hadn't really focused in on that, like the origin and going back and saying, okay, this is the root word, this is in Latin, this is in Greek, all that kind of stuff. It's really fascinating. I would love to read some more on that. That was just really, really great. So totally recommend this. This ended up being a 5-star read for me. Loved it. Then another one, and I almost say this is 5-star, but in, not the literary sense, but in the funsy kind of sense. And that is Don't Believe It by Charlie Donnelly. So if you like watching like that train wreck kind of show, like I was talking about how sometimes I'm not into that, But I did watch that show that was following along the Jodi Arias trials and how she had brutally murdered her boyfriend. And it's like, why would anyone do that? How did she get away with that? How did she not get away with that? You know, what was the evidence? So that is this story here. You're starting out with a woman in prison for killing her boyfriend, and then they're flashing back in time and doing different perspectives, and you're trying to figure out, did she really do it? Did she not really do it? You know, what was the cover up? What was going on? And there's a lot of beautiful scenery. It goes along introducing several side characters and their kind of points of view, and it was really well done. I just really page turner, followed along, thought it was great. I figured out some of the points, but not all of the points. And so it was like a mystery kind of whodunit. And because it transported back and forth and didn't just show the prison scene, but showed back into the history and all of that, it was, you know, it kept the flow moving. So I really loved the flow of it, really loved the characters, loved the drama of it, loved the mystery of it. Totally engaging and entertaining. This would be a really fun even beach read or vacation read, that kind of thing. So there's a couple tops and flops for my 2023 reading. I thank you for stopping by. You can definitely debate me in the comments below or add on anything else you want to share. If you're interested in reading one of these now, let me know. And I look forward to sharing the rest of my reviews for January. That will be coming up in just another week or two, where I have my classic and my nonfiction, which were also really great. So I look forward to sharing those with you soon. Like and subscribe. Take care. Happy reading, y'all.